Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining us on this edition of News 2. Happy Monday. I'm Sandra Gumansing. Topic on Newscast, Sugar Bay Hotel's troubles are getting worse. The St. Thomas Resort and Spa has been let go by the Dreams brand in December 2015, and after that, some employees reported being laid off abruptly. Now, the Justice Department is getting involved, and the hotel could face fines and sanctions. News 2's April Knight has more.
Vernice Webster has worked in Sugar Bay Hotel as a food and beverage supervisor for 20 years, but her layoff happened within minutes.
I came into work and they told me to go to HR, and HR director said due to the low occupancy, they cannot keep me there any longer. I was betrayed because I'm a very loyal worker.
Webster is just one of as many as 47 employees laid off by the hotel in the past 3 months or so. Many of them were entitled to severance packages, which the hotel withheld. On Monday, they joined a press conference called by Attorney General Claude Walker, who made an announcement that puts Sugar Bay in a deeper hole.
We allege that Sugar Bay has conducted a mass layoff but has failed to give the Commissioner of Labor notice, the union notice, the employees proper notice, and also has failed to pay severance.
Walker said the hotel faces severe penalties, including a $3,000 fine per affected employee.
According to the Attorney General, the owners of Sugar Bay seem to have structured the layoffs so that they don't trigger the provisions of the Plant Closing Act. But he said even though he hasn't looked into it yet, the hotel could face criminal sanctions.
According to officials, the fact that the hotel lost the EDC tax breaks that it had been enjoying for 15 years does not excuse the recent allegedly illegal practices.
This company has a number of luxury hotels in downtown Manhattan. They have hotels in Florida. They have other properties in Manhattan besides hotels. On any given day that the owners of Sugar Bay make multiples of what they owe these ex-employees in severance.
Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
Now, the temporary restraining order against Sugar Bay was signed by a Superior Court judge on Friday night after the Attorney General's office filed a complaint on the same day. Well, just as an FYI, Lieutenant Governor Osbert Potter is serving as acting governor effective March 13th through Thursday, March 18th, while Governor Kenneth Mapp is out of the territory attending the annual Cruise Global Conference in Fort Lauderdale, Florida. And we will have more on that. Turn our attention to CORON Report. Friday, March 11 at roughly 8:06 p.m., officers were dispatched by the 911 Emergency Call Center to Old Castle Coakley in response to a report of gunfire. Upon arrival to the scene, a black male was found lying on the ground who sustained multiple gunshot wounds about the body. EMT responded to the scene immediately, transported the victim to the Wallaby Hospital, where he later succumbed to his injuries sustained in the incident. The male individual was later identified as 36-year-old Darian Griffith of Castle Coakley. Further investigation revealed that Griffith had recently been released from prison in 2012. This homicide is under active investigation. Call the numbers if you can help. Also on Saturday, March 12 at roughly 3:26 p.m., officers responded to shots fired in the vicinity of the Concordia gas station on St. Croix. Officers learned that a maroon Mercedes-Benz had been involved in a drive-by shooting. Shortly after, additional information revealed that a Toyota Tacoma traveling out of Concordia at a high rate of speed towards the Wallaby Hospital contained 2 gunshot victims that needed medical treatment. The victims were later identified as Kareem Matthias, 24, of the Harrigan Court area, and Laquan Hill, 21, of Hannah's Rest. Both sustained non-life-threatening injuries. Sunday, March 13 at 1:07 p.m., officers responded to the call of a break-in that occurred at Estate Catherine's Rest. The complainant stated that while inside his home, a male individual with a black t-shirt over his face and handgun kicked in his screen door, while another individual stood on his front porch. The suspect fired a single gunshot. According to the complainant, the voice of the suspect sounded very familiar and that he believed it was the son of his neighbor. Moments later, officers received notification that the suspects were observed in the neighbor's pickup truck. Officers then successfully detained 19-year-old Arand Gums, pictured there, and a 15-year-old minor. They were arrested and charged with first-degree burglary. The minor was transported to the Youth Rehabilitation Center. 4 days after the Republican Caucus on St. Croix, which happened at the Buccaneer Hotel on March 10th, some unsuccessful candidates are coming forward, expressing concern about the integrity of the process being compromised. Among the allegations are ballot tampering and breaking caucus and Virgin Islands rules. NEWS2's April Knight has details.
4 Republicans who ran unsuccessfully in the March 10th caucus on St. Croix are speaking out with accusations of ballot tampering and broken caucus rules.
There must be integrity in these type of elections. There are rules of the caucus. There are also rules of the Virgin Islands for registering to vote.
According to David Johnson, who ended up number 7, any VI registered Republican can run for delegate to the Republican National Convention in Cleveland. It's a little different in the Virgin Islands. While in the States, voters select a presidential candidate, in the territory, party members vote for the delegates themselves, who may be committed to a presidential candidate or remain uncommitted. 42 names in total were in the running last week. Uncommitted delegates won the top 6 spots, led by newcomer John Yob and his wife Erica. But according to Valerie Stiles, who was number 8 in the final tally, the uncommitted delegates may not have been so uncommitted at all based on what happened during a meet and greet at the Buccaneer.
Mr. John Yob got up and was saying what a great guy and gentleman John Kasich was and what a great president he would make. He's running uncommitted, but yet he was promoting John Kasich.
Johnson said some individuals on the ballot possibly did not meet the residency requirements to run, including John Yob, who was placed back on the ballot last minute after questions about his eligibility took him off. Stiles said there was also evidence of individuals going around the island having Republican voters sign documents that they later find out to be actual absentee ballots. They voted without knowing it.
He comes into the store all the time to have things signed. And it was a cruise ship day, and they just wanted to get him out of there, and they signed it. They realized it was the caucus.
These 4 Republicans say they just want to make sure that the integrity of the process remains intact. Reporting for News 2, I'm April Knight.
And we're still looking closely at this story. We'll have more for you in a later newscast. Meanwhile, as you may have heard, the president was in town over the weekend. Reggie Brown, a renowned impersonator of President Barack Obama, he toured the island, gave a performance. He also gave his opinions on the fact that Virgin Islanders cannot vote for president and the recent dispute in the Republican caucus. Here's more.
I think it's ridiculous. First of all, I think everyone in the United States over the age of 18 should be required to vote and voice their opinion. There's just so many things, money in politics, and there's so much trickery that goes into it. I don't like to see this bickering and this fighting. We need to put America first, put the Republican stuff aside, Democrat aside, fix the economy, get everything we need to get going in the right places, and quit this childish banter and just make sure that we do what we're supposed to do. We take care of our troops, take care of our people, and that's the bottom line. Keep our Americans and people around the world safe. But that all this stuff is childish. That being said, I want Bernie Sanders to win.
Now be sure to tune in later on in the newscast. We'll have more about the impersonators who were in the territory for a worthy cause to raise some funds for Civil Air Patrol. Meanwhile, turn our attention overseas. Donald Trump is again facing recrimination from all sides, not just for the tone of his campaign, but also for what seems like an increasing amount of violence at his events. Reed Binion reports.
It was a rough weekend in politics, both literally and figuratively. After Friday's violence in Chicago, a protester tried to rush the stage at a Trump event in Ohio. Officials arrested the man, who Trump accused of having ties to ISIS. In an interview with CNN, the protester strongly denied any such ties.
Donald Trump is a bully, and he's willing to destroy this country for power for himself.
Candidates on both sides of the aisle reacted to the violence by criticizing the tone of Trump's campaign.
What Trump has done is like a case of political arson.
He has turned the most important
election and a generation into a circus.
Trump shrugs off responsibility for violence at his events, but he has said that he'd pay legal fees for supporters who assault disruptive protesters. NBC's Chuck Todd asked Trump if that offer would extend to a supporter of his who was arrested last week.
I've actually instructed my people to look into it, yes.
That response drew a scathing rebuke from Bernie Sanders Sunday.
What that means is that Donald Trump is literally inciting violence with his supporters.
Sanders also rejected Trump's suggestions that his campaign is sending protesters to disrupt rallies.
Donald Trump is a pathological liar.
Republicans also sounded off, including John Kasich, who has mostly stayed away from attacking the frontrunner.
There is no place for a national leader to prey on the fears of people who live in our great country.
After a weekend of turbulence on the trail, voters in 5 more states will vote on Tuesday. I'm Reed Binion reporting.
Meanwhile, keeping our eye on the economy, let's take a look at the New York Stock Exchange with our Stock Market Watch. Taking a look at the numbers there, we can see the Dow up at 15, NASDAQ up 1, S&P 500 down 2. Coming up on News 2, time for our VI History Quiz. Who helped draft the U.S. Constitution and was the first Secretary of the Treasury? He had direct ties to St. Croix. The answer's coming up. Beautiful shot there. Welcome back. Most states sprang forward an hour to begin daylight savings time on Sunday. It began at 2 a.m. Sunday, March 13th. But the federal government doesn't require U.S. states or territories to observe daylight savings time, which is why residents of Arizona, except for residents of the Navajo Indian Reservation, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, the Virgin Islands, American Samoa, Guam, and the Northern Marianas Islands did not need to change their clocks this weekend. However, your television programming times have changed once again, and that's the rundown right there. 7 a.m., CBS This Morning, 9, Rachel Ray, 10, Judge Mathis, 11 a.m., The Price is Right, 12, that's when News 2 re-airs, that's Tuesday through Friday, 12:30 p.m., The Young and the Restless, 1:30, The Bold and the Beautiful, 2 p.m., The Talk, 3, Let's Make a Deal, 4 p.m., Judge Judy, 5 p.m., The Ellen Show, 6 p.m., Wheel of Fortune, 6:30 p.m., CBS Evening News, and then 7 p.m., tune in for News 2, 7:30, Jeopardy, 8 p.m., it's CBS primetime programming, taking you all the way down into the late evening. Now, before we move on, just a quick note to you, our viewers, there will be another change in programming this week and next due to the 2016 NCAA Basketball Championships that will be aired here on CBS TV2 on Thursday and Friday, March 17th and 18th. News 2 will not be aired at its regularly scheduled time. Also on Thursday and Friday, March 24th and 25th, we will be back on air Monday, March 28th with our regular scheduled programming. Virgin Islands Governor Kenneth Mapp has proclaimed the week of March 13th to 19th as the Tsunami Preparedness Week 2016 and urges all Virgin Islanders to prepare for tsunami hazards by learning what actions should be taken in response to a warning. The governor notes in the proclamation that 30 lives were lost in the tsunami of 1867 when most human activity was inland. But given the greater number of people now active along our shoreline at any given moment, tsunami casualties today could be significant. During Tsunami Preparedness Week, the Virgin Islands Territorial Emergency Management Agency, VITEMA, will be participating in Carib Wave 16, a regional tsunami response exercise on Thursday, March 17th, and we will have more from VITEMA as they prepare for that exercise. The St. Thomas East End Medical Center had been experiencing several technical malfunctions that have affected access to some patient medical information, but now technical difficulties have been resolved. After malfunctioning for several days, the system has been restored, they say. Staff and management urge patients to make a habit of bringing medications and prescriptions to each visit. The health center appreciates the understanding and tenacity of patients while the system was being repaired. The VI Department of Agriculture is celebrating National Agriculture Week, which is March 13th to the 19th, which with the National Agriculture Day being Tuesday, March 15th. This year's theme is Agriculture, Stewards of a Healthy Planet, to celebrate The VI Department of Agriculture will be hosting activities across the territory. Today, there was an agriculture presentation at the Julius Sprouse School in St. John. Now on Tuesday, March 15th, an agriculture open house at the Rudolph Schultebrand Agriculture Complex in St. Croix, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Wednesday, March 16th, another open house at the Sanderilla Thomas Bungalow in St. Thomas, 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Friday, March 18th, an agriculture presentation by Department of Agriculture's Commissioner Carlos Robles at the Gift Hill School on St. John. Afternoon on the Green is coming up this weekend. If you have always wanted to try your hand at some cooking, there are many different categories. Everyone gets a taste, and it's for a worthy cause. It's one of the biggest fundraisers held at UVI's Herman E. Moore Golf Course. It includes a little bit of everything for everyone. And right now, there is still room for cooks. Here's more.
We encourage small groups. If you have a nonprofit organization, or you just like to cook, or you can make one dish, two dishes, we are looking for people. That is our bread and butter of the event. That is what makes the event. There are lots of great prizes for first, second, and third in each category. And each categories are entrees, soups, pastry, sides, seafoods, casseroles, vegetables. Honestly, we want people to sign up as soon as possible. So if you think you're going to cook, please call us at 693-1040. But we accept entries up to about Thursday.
The Department of Education is administering the end-of-year Smarter Balanced Summative Assessments in English Language Arts and Mathematics to public school students in 3rd through 8th grades and 11th grade, and it began today, Monday, March 14th. The testing window is open through June 17th, 2016. This is the second year the Department of Education is administering the online tests, which are aligned to the Virgin Islands' new higher academic standards that were adopted in 2010. Smarter Balanced test results provide teachers and parents with more accurate information of how students are performing on the path to success after high school. Well, time for a moment in VI history as we continue to recognize VI History Month. We remember Alexander Hamilton. He was born on the island of Nevis to Rachel Fawcett and James Hamilton, but he spent the majority of his youth on the island of St. Croix. Alexander was educated early by his mother and a Presbyterian clergyman in St. Croix. He was employed at the age of 12 as a clerk in a general store and was found to be quite exceptional in his job as well as his writing. Alexander left the island in 1772. In New York, he eventually enrolled in King's College, which is now known as Columbia, but withdrew from King's College and joined a local New York militia to fight against the British. Hamilton quickly moved up in the ranks and eventually became one of General George Washington's military aides. Later in his life, he helped draft the U.S. Constitution and was the first Secretary of the Treasury. Hamilton served in Washington's cabinet for only 5 years. He died on July 11, 1804, at the age of 47. Now, a row of arcaded buildings across the street from the Government House includes the Alexander Hamilton House in Christiansted, a historical landmark. Meanwhile, it wasn't just Obama impersonator Reggie Brown, as we reported early in the newscast, who was in the territory over the weekend. We introduced Antonio McKay, who's known as a Prince impersonator. There was also Billy Wade, an Elvis tribute artist. Together, these three went around St. Thomas and performed their acts at the Paradise Point, giving joy and laughter to their enthusiastic audience. The event, which was sponsored by various local businesses, was a fundraiser for the Civil Air Patrol.
It was amazing. We were cruising in the motorcade with my security details. Been amazing this whole trip, and people, we've been rolling down the window just to wave and smile, and people freak out. They grab their phones, they don't know what to do. They start chasing the motorcade. This woman took her baby. She had strapped to her stomach immediately. Gave him to me. You know, I was holding the babies.
The crowd is good. I think I told you before. The energy
feed off it.
Them. You get the adrenaline. Yeah. So that always helps. They were really fun. They were enthusiastic. They jumped up, they yelled, they knew all the words to the songs. Yeah, they were great.
The children were really impressed me. They were very quiet, and they waited a long time for us to get to them. And when we could spend our time with them a little bit and get to talk to them, and take some pictures with them. They did a fantastic job, very well behaved children. The whole event was fantastic. We had a great time.
The music was hopping and the crowd was jumping for the annual tattoo contest held at Blues Barbecue, sponsored by Crew de Croix. The 10 contestants who were sporting colorful ink from head to toe entered 9 different categories. West Toronto was the big winner, topping 3 categories: Best Sleeve, Best St. Croix, and Best Portrait. Most Unique and Best Leg went to Weasel. Courtney Story won Best Back, Jen Strum won Best Color, John Ford won Best Full Body, and Tamara Lozano won People's Choice. Be sure to stick around. Your News 2 AccuWeather forecast is coming up next.